All right. So here we go. We're now got it. All right. So here we are. We're live. So let me let in the last person. So where we are right now, we're asking everybody. Oh, I didn't have to share a screen. So we're asking everybody that I want to know, how is the term research used? So far we had one person saying that he thinks that there's something called basic research, which is basically about defining the fundamental concepts in a term. Anybody else? How is the term, how is research used? I think in a chat, and then somebody else in the room. Somebody, okay, so somebody said uncovering documentation and facts and information on a subject. So yes, that is how most people in everyday life use the term research, not true, guys? So if you want to say we want to find a restaurant that's near to us, a lot of people say you want to like just using Google, they interchange using a search engine or asking somebody with the term research, or opening a book to look for something on a topic as research. Not true? So the word research is used in a very casual way to mean searching for information. It's also used in another way in academia. Can anybody tell me how the term research is used in academia, as in university and among people who have formal degrees?
It's to create new knowledge.
What's that?
Used to create new knowledge.
Create new knowledge. Okay, yes, it's creating new knowledge, but creating new knowledge, there's some steps before that. As in perhaps the goal of research is create new knowledge, but what is how would you define or describe research? Maybe the objective is to create new knowledge, but that's not a traditional definition. So that's a partial description of the phenomena of research. Anybody wants to add to that?
So research. So I would say this is an well-organized way or study to gather information about a specific topic.
Yeah, well, it is that. So I like that. It is an organized way to gather information about a topic with a research question. So what is missing from that? I'm not going to, since we have a lot of things to cover today, I'm going to add in, it has to be something that is not known to the world. The difference between everyday research, where you uncover something that's already known, with scientific inquiry, where you essentially attempt to discover what is not known. So the gentleman who said, so you can add knowledge. Academic research is really about discovering things that nobody knows the answer to. Whereas I want to call it everyday research is about like basically looking for data and information that's already known. So let's go back to from current slide. Here we are. All right, so what's research? Collection of information about a particular topic, a systematic investigation to reach a conclusion. So you have a particular question or problem you want to resolve, and you want to do rigorous scientific scrutiny, so that at the end of this study, you have much more than just guesswork. The third way in my mind that the term research is used is as an adjective. So we have this thing called a research paper. So you've all in one of our previous classes, like say IT, environmental studies, psychology, etc. You've all usually in a group done a research paper. That kind of research paper is what we would call a literature review in this class. We'll be talking about that in weeks to come. Particularly in week 3, we were going to have a whole class session on that. But you'll see why I will explain why what we're doing here is more than just simply a regular research paper. But it is what it is. So what is academic research? It is where the researcher poses a question, they collect data to answer the question, and then you present that answer. Or Saunders says, something that people undertake in order to find things out in a systematic way in order to increase their knowledge. So Mr. Creswell, I actually met him in, what year did I meet him? I met him in 2017 at a conference in Jamaica, I think. Yes, or was it 2018? I met him. He was in Montego Bay, Jamaica. He's a well-known mixed method researcher. You see, this year, collecting data, what are the two types of data that you can collect? Does anybody know? Actually, I had mentioned it in the objective.
Qualitative and quantitative.
Oh, yes, somebody's bright. And what's the difference between those two types?
I think qualitative deals with like physical characteristics or attributes, and then quantitative have to do with numeric data.
Well, quantitative is definitely numeric data, but qualitative is not exactly what you just said. It's really just non-numeric data. So for example, the simplest non-numeric data is words. So like if we were to just record the words that we're saying right now and use it as to, for example, I wanted to figure out how engaged the class is today. I could record the entire, well, I'm recording right now on YouTube. So we could then like now see how many times people talked and see what percentage of the class, how many students talked and what percentage of the time it was for the class. And maybe I will use that as a, so I could, okay, so let's back up. Engagement, for those who don't know, is this idea that students participate in a class. I mean, there are other kinds of engagement, not within a classroom. So if I want to figure out if you are engaged, as in the kind of participation, I can do that using quantitative and qualitative methods. So in terms of quantitative, I could measure how many times, how many students participated, how long was the participation, and I could do it qualitatively. I could now like actually transcribe all the words that were said by the students and assess it. So in this class itself, if I had a research question, what is the level of engagement in my lecture classes and what I look of during the semester? Yes, I can collect data. Everybody following me?
Yes, Steve.
Yes,
Well, at
teach.
least one person is following, right? And just as before we go forward, I'm a little bit idiosyncratic. I prefer to be called Teach or Sam as my initials, or Prof or Ms. Muir. My name is Suzanne Muir for those who missed that. All right. So in terms of research is important for at least 3 reasons. It can add to our knowledge. So you can address gaps in the knowledge, expand the knowledge, replicate knowledge. So sometimes people do not do research to see whether previous research is really accurate. Like for example, right now, we're all very interested to know that vaccines work. So when a company does one study, we're wanting to know, well, we're not sure. Let's do the study several times to find out if it really works. Not true? So in fact, people want to know in Jamaica, have we done any studies in Jamaica? And since we are truly, who actually, this might be of big interest, I am actually in the COVID-19 research agenda committee, meaning I'm literally in the research committee for COVID in Jamaica, COVID-19 in Jamaica. And you know what is interesting, guys? We don't have enough time in the class to talk about that. But the interesting thing is that we don't have that much money to do the research that has been proposed. So there actually are many committees, subcommittees in that, and excellent research proposals. And most of the research that has been done has been funded by money outside of Jamaica. And the Ministry of Health and Wellness, whether it is that, I'm not even sure what the reason is. They have had limited money to actually fund the research projects. And so the only way we were going to know some of these things, like in a Jamaican context, is to research it. If you wanted to research, like what is the actual, if you wanted to track what happens to everybody who takes the vaccine, if you don't follow them in a very careful way, you don't know. Not true? And that's actually a form of research. So you could do a prospective longitudinal research study on those people. You could do a cross-sectional study to find out what is the effect of a vaccine on people. But there are lots of things you could do to see what is the short-term effect. But we're going to be talking about how research adds to our knowledge, adds voices. The best Jamaican example I could give to this is the Maroons. Well, this is way outside of computing, but often in research, we're thinking about people who they are left out of research. So insofar as like people in psychology, anthropology, sociology may be interested in groups that are not really normally researched. I could think in Jamaica that might be the Maroons or, some group that are particularly, impoverished. Might be the humanities and the social sciences may want to focus on this. In computing, this is less of our concern. Somebody had a comment or a question?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Miss, when you're talking about replicating the knowledge, like for
Yes.
example, finding out if vaccines actually work, wouldn't it be validating the knowledge?
Right. So we're going to talk in just a few minutes about how we know whether one study is valid. You have to use the right term. But the point is, replicating knowledge is really typically it's taking a study and doing the study again. So with replication of knowledge, you can essentially study you can do the methods of a research study and repeat it to see if that study is actually true. Or to use the research term properly, if it's valid.
Okay, teach.
Okay, right. So the second reason why we do research is to improve practice. So in the quote unquote real world, professionals can read research, publish research results to get ideas for their jobs and get insights. And if they publish research, they can connect with each other. So this last one may seem trivial, but honestly, this can actually validate your career through everything from social networking sites like LinkedIn to make it more likely that you'll be able to be promoted by doing excellent research. But the first two is most likely to be the ones that will lead to improve business practice. So if it is, let me give you an example. So apparently research has shown that when in a programming environment, when programmers get peer review, meaning other programmers look at their code and the comment, the programs get better in real life. Now, apparently there's a lot of resistance to programmers getting feedback from their peers. So if somebody whose manager comes in and says, okay, guys, we're going to be putting this in place, and everybody says, no, but we don't want to do it. The thing is, the person who's the manager can say, well, at this workplace, this is what we are essentially, this is our practice. And this is based on research. And so we're going to be doing this. And, and I mean, yes, you could be persuasive, but the whole idea is we're deciding to do this based on research has already shown that this is not just a brain idea I have, but it has already been researched and already been implemented in other organizations and led to improved code. And therefore, that's why we're doing it. All right. And then thirdly, research can inform policy debates. So those policies could be within the government or any other organization, whether a business or a nonprofit. So the one that comes to my mind is smoking. I don't know if you know that when Jamaica put in place the banning cigarette smoking in public spaces, it was based on research. So research, we already know that smoking kills, but there was data that showed that when smoking bans were put in place in other countries, it led to improved respiratory conditions, as in less disease. And so that is why there was a policy, as in legislation, that said, let's ban smoking in public spaces. So both policies in a firm and policies in a government can be based on research. Can you guys hear the speaking in the background?
Yes,
Yes.
teach.
Or is it disturbing?
Not
What is
really.
here? Oh, it's okay. All right, I could try and tell them to. If at any point it gets disturbing, I'll go on. But they're talking so loud. Sorry, they're disturbing me. They're not disturbing you. So why should students do research? Well, because learning takes place. If you, no, this is disturbing me. 1 second. Hi guys, I'm having a lecture. Excuse me, I'm having a lecture. You're disturbing me.
They might disturb teach.
Hello. Sorry, I just knocked on the person looking at me like, but they were just so loud. Yes, back to you. Right. So why should students do research? This still as loud anyway. A lot of learning. Yeah, I'm just anyway, let me try this. Let me just focus on my lecture. Right. Why should students do research? So you should do research because it helps you with assimilating knowledge. Generally speaking, if you do research, especially ones that you're interested in, you tend to have a deeper discipline for discipline that you are investigating. You can help clarify your career goals. You can engage your intellectual curiosity. It's always recommended, guys, that you focus on things that you're curious about, and or that you think that this is solving a real problem. Because if it's neither one of them, you tend to be like, why in the world am I doing this really hard project? Research can give you an outlet for creativity, and it can make your CV/resume more attractive. And if you do research well, you can give the tutor teaching you a good reason to write a good recommendation letter. On a side note here, if you're going to ask me to write your recommendation letter, please don't do what somebody just did the other day. Write me a letter. I'd like a recommendation letter from you. Nothing more than that. Not what class I taught them. no other detail. I'm like, okay, like interesting. Yeah, so if you're going to ask that, it needs to be with some, just making a comment, generally speaking, it needs to be with some detail. You need to be a little bit creative when you ask somebody, unless you're sure that that person knows you really well. Yes, so anyway, so research is a confidence booster, especially if you find that it has helped you improve your thinking. I remember I supervised a master's student a few years ago, and he literally said that at the end of his master's thesis, he knew that he thought better. So I can think of him as an example, or I can also think of a student who just finished last year major project. She's still a fourth year student right now, and she just won the Ministry of Health research oral presentation. I don't have to wonder. I'm sure she has a confidence because she presented the research. It was just in the class was like you guys, and the group came up with a topic, and I supervised them, and they won best student presentation. So it is possible just from being in this class and going through with your own research ideas that you can actually do things that other people recognize as good work. You can establish a relationship with a mentor, and we said the last one already, so I'll leave that alone. So some persons are scared of research. Research is way too hard and my grades aren't good enough. So a counter to that is anyone who is self-motivated and interested can do research. it does need some time and commitment, and you need to like start in week 1. Please, let's not start in it. The later you start, the worse it's going to be. Myth 2, you have to give scary presentation. The thing is, presentations are only as scary as you let them be. I know that some people are, sorry, for major project, remember this class, research methods is a prerequisite for major project. And in major project, both in this class and in major project, you're required to do presentations. But presentations is basically about oral and written communication. And it's all about preparation and feedback. If you practice your presentations and if you want to write well, it's all about getting feedback so that it's as good as it can be. Okay, so there are a number of types of research: computer science, software engineering, information systems, computer education, animation, computer engineering. In SCIT, we have 4 undergrad degrees: animation, BSc computing, which has 2 majors, IT and computer science, and IT currently has 4 minors. And then we have 2 other newer degrees, the BSc information systems and the BSc network and security. Well, I think this semester we actually have people from all 4 degrees. Yeah, because just in my tutorials. So I know that. So earlier, there was a question that somebody brought up about the replication of research. So we can, these are what I have on the screen right now is not the only types of scholarly articles, but these are 3 common types of. So there's secondary research, primary research, and let's just call them opinion pieces. So we don't have to think really hard. Opinion pieces would be the least quality type of research article. In this particular module, we'll be teaching how to do empirical studies. Another term for empirical studies are primary research. So we're going to be through weeks 5 to about the end. Not all of it. We're going to be talking about research design and different types of research methods. We're going to be learning about different types of empirical studies. But we're going to be talking briefly, really briefly, about secondary research and why you want to look at it in doing your own literature review. And I already said that you all have done a literature review when you did a research paper. It's just that you didn't call it that. So let's start there right now. Has anybody here ever heard of the term systematic review or narrative review or meta-analysis? If so, can you raise your hand? Let me look and see. Anybody? So nobody. So let's go with, I'm actually curious. Is anybody here heard of the term empirical study, randomized control trial? Well, everybody must have heard of the term surveys. I won't ask you that. Hold on, nobody heard of the word oh, Devin? What term have you heard of?
Sorry about that, teach. Empirical study.
Oh, empirical study. Akeem, you had up your hand?
I was gonna say empirical study, miss.
Oh, empirical study. Okay, all right. So we'll talk about this in a second. All right, so I think about it, a narrative review is what you have done in the past. So a narrative review is a paper that looks at a number of studies on a topic in order to give an overview of that topic. That's pretty much what you have done. So like I've come to class and several of you want to look at things like how blockchain is being used in this discipline or that discipline, or people want to look at, security issues in some particular area. It's a narrative review. So you look at, a lot of you are coming into the class wanting to do narrative reviews when I'm trying to tell you that what the class is about is defining an empirical study. So in defining an empirical study, you will be doing a narrative review, but if your proposed topic is, you know, what is known about something, that is actually a narrative review. So let's just take a second, and I'm going to move, how do I get to this? Let's do this. I had one open from before, from last class. Here we go. Let's see. Log in again. Somebody has their mic open. You had a question? Okay, so for example, this is just one. So this is a systematic review. So this systematic review, schools and emergency remote education during the COVID-19 pandemic. Living Rapid Systematic Review was published 2020. It says that, oh no, this is, oh, I didn't want this one. I want one that actually has the whole paper. Yeah, I'm trying to think. Maybe I should just look for another systematic review. Hi, whoever has their mic open, can you kindly close it unless you have something to ask or say, please? Let's do this. 800 and let's see if this is the whole paper. No, I want one that's the whole paper. Systematic review. What area do I want to look at very quickly? I don't know. I did not have one. I did not have. It's not even a recent paper. Use of mobile education. No, I don't want something that's. Let's look and see what this is. See if the whole paper is here. Let's look. Oops. What just happened there? Just disappeared. People keep coming on and out of the. Okay, my computer don't want to bring up anything. Why is that? My computer is like, it doesn't want to show anything right now. This doesn't sound exciting, but I just want to show up a paper. But nothing is opening. Well, maybe I should just leave this alone. Maybe I should just subscribe because this is taking too long to open up anything, and I can just subscribe. That might be faster than sitting or telling you. All right. So basically, a systematic review is a paper that essentially, okay, what you do is the author or authors essentially select some keywords and use those keywords in 2 or more online databases to systematically find all articles on a particular topic. So Google Scholar is not a online database that, what happens is that everybody uses Google Scholar, it actually gives you different results depending on where you're located. So it's not systematic. So if you're doing a systematic review, you must use other kinds of databases like IEEE, Explore, ACM, Embase, there are others. And you use 2 or more of these, Scopus, website, whatever. You use 2 or more of these online databases with keywords that match your paper topic, and then you do a search, and typically you get back hundreds or thousands of matches on the abstracts, and then you look through the abstracts in order to find the papers that match what you're looking for, and then the one or more authors would need to figure out if each of those papers really are a match, and then look at all the papers that are really a match in order to then write a comprehensive paper about the topic. So a systematic review is an attempt to review all papers that have ever been written on a topic. A narrative review is not that. It's just an attempt to do an overview of a topic based on good papers on the topic. Do you see the difference? I was going to show you the methods in a real paper, but I'm having a problem opening up a paper right now because I don't know what's wrong with my internet access. Seems to be, yes, Andrew.
So systematic review goes more in detail and tries to look at a broader scope of
Yeah, so it's not just goes more in detail, it's actually systematic. So it's literally, the goal is to look at all articles on a topic. All. So it is the goal of a systematic review is to look at all papers on a topic based on some keyword criteria. A narrative, so it definitely is more comprehensive than a narrative review. A meta-analysis now is a paper that is like a systematic review, but you take the statistical data or the quantitative data, and essentially you contact each of the authors and take those data and run statistical analyses on that data in order to find what are the trends in all these studies. So because that statistical analysis is better than the qualitative analysis of a systematic review, that is why I make a comment here that meta-analysis is better than a systematic review, and a systematic review is better than a narrative review. And then we have the primary research. There are different kinds of studies, and generally speaking, the gold standard is experiential standard, of which randomized control trial is the best type of experimental study. So depending on the type of experimental study, depend on the level of confidence we have in making generalizations. So the quality of evidence is important. So therefore we have this diagram. Meta-analysis is more important than systematic review. These are articles that are basically appraising papers that already exist. Yes, Nintindi? Ntini, sorry, I'm mixing up the name, sorry about that. Yes, Ntini.
I just wanted to clarify something. So RCT stands for randomized control trial?
Yeah, see it right here on the green, randomized control trials.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Right, so a randomized control trial is an experiment where you have 2 or more arms. One arm is called the experimental arm and the other arm is called a control arm. So if you think about it in medicine, it would be where one group, the control group, is given like a placebo, like a sugar pill. It doesn't have to be a sugar pill. And then the other group will be given like the medicine. And that could also be in computing, or let's take it in education. So if you want to figure out if you want to figure out if a new type of educational approach works better, we can actually do a randomized control trial. So you can have one group of students who are in the typical normal educational cohort, and then the other group that are being given the new educational intervention. For it to be a true randomized control trial, both groups have to be identical in their makeup. meaning in terms of the aptitude and the prior knowledge and all those kind of things. If it's not really randomized, then it would be a non-randomized control trial. That's a whole long story that we don't have time to talk about right now, but does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, no
Professor.
problem. Right, so we're going to be talking way later in the class about the differences between experimental studies and observational studies. And I noticed on this, because this came from a particular source that I didn't create, we're also going to be talking about surveys and some other studies, types of studies which are not here. Other kinds of observational studies that are not on this list. And then we also have the opinion pieces like expert opinion. So there are different qualities of evidence. So here's though my next question. So any one of these papers, so these are normally published in papers, papers in journals or conference proceedings. So from an academic point of view, journals and conference proceedings are actually better than books. So a peer-reviewed journal is better than a conference proceeding, which is better than a book in general. I mean, there are some cases where that may be exception, but making a generalization. And then even within journals, there are better journals than others. In general, are there any articles in a peer-reviewed journal that we can say, in fact, that's not what I want to ask. Let's say it a different way. Let me go back to the slide before. Primary research. Can there be any one primary research study that leads to proof of something? What you all think?
As in if it's carried out just once, or if it's
question.
repeated?
Right, if you just carry it out once, I'm asking what you think. So Nathaniel says no.
I don't think so.
I think you can probably set a stage for you to test, but not be fully conclusive.
Okay, I like that, not fully conclusive. Now, to say no means that you're definitively saying that there's no possibility. So I'm sure a number of people here have already done a statistics class. So the people who have done a statistics class, what in statistics would you utilize to benchmark that assessment? I mean, is it just your feeling? You're saying that you don't think so, and yeah, I would agree. I don't think so either. But if you are reading a paper or doing the research yourself, what actually happens right now is quite a number of major project students get up and start to say that their study proves. And the reason I'm going from the first class is I want to make sure I'm just telling you that you need to be very cautious. It's very unlikely that your study is going to prove anything. And so you're going to be hoping that your study may strongly suggest or moderately suggest, or it may suggest. And by the way, if it strongly doesn't suggest anything, that's fine. You don't want to be lying about your study. So if your hypothesis is not confirmed, you just get up and explain what your study, and we will still give you the grade that you deserve based on your work. It's okay that your hypothesis is not confirmed. But back to the story. How would we know if the study strongly suggests that the hypothesis is true? Well, it would be to do with the statistical analysis. So if you do like correlation or multiple regression, that would tell you the strength of the relationship. But then there's something called statistical significance. Hold on, you guys didn't learn this in statistics? I have 60-something, 77 people here. Anyway, we'll be talking about that in the future. But it is if the statistical significance is really good. So for example, if you have like if the significance is underneath Like if it is alpha less than 0.01, which means that there's a 99% chance. So if there's a 99% chance after doing the study, it won't guarantee that there's proof, but it means that it's very likely that it's very likely. Guys, why are you having on your mics? It would mean that it's very likely that your paper, that your research is true. But yes, in general, it is good to replicate a study. All right, so let's move on. Let me go on from current slide. All right, so I wanted just to spend a little time locating articles in Google Scholar, but we're running out of time. Let's look at the time. So to do research, you need to have curiosity to solve puzzles, long attention spans, library and computer resource skills, writing and editing skills. So by the way, Google Scholar is what I recommend for everybody to start with. So if you're doing a study, you want to look for both existing empirical studies, and if they exist, systematic reviews, because both reviews, meta-analyses, and systematic reviews are going to tell you an overview of the topic. So where they exist, you want to start with systematic reviews and meta-analyses on your topic, if it exists. All right. And so the research process is the first 4 items here are going to vary depending whether you're doing a qualitative or quantitative study. So if it's a quantitative study, it's pretty much you finish the first 4 items and then do 5 to 8. If it's a qualitative study, which is you can actually keep changing all of these areas in an iterative way. So let me just move on. I'll soon come and explain that. I see we're out of time. There are 5 chapters that we're using in our major project in SCIT. The introductory chapter, your first assignment will be a concept note, the literature review, the methods and procedures, the results and findings, and the conclusions and recommendations. So the introductory chapter is the concept note that we're going to be talking about today. We're out of time, so we'll talk about it next week. And what you do is you identify the research problem, review the scholar literature, specify a research purpose, collect data, analyze, interpret the data, report and evaluate research. And if you go back here, this first 4 items is in a way that you keep going back and forth. So the research problem, the literature, and the purpose, by reading the literature, you may realize that the problem that you have, you may need to change, because every research question that you have has to be justified by the scholarly literature. We're going to be clarifying what we mean by that, but the short answer here is for every research project, remember we're talking right now about the empirical studies, you must specify a problem. Even in the systematic reviews, you specify a problem. So you're going to specify a problem, you're going to justify that when you write with a background. Let me just show this for a second. You want to justify it with a background with citations and the significance. So the significance is why people other than you will benefit from the research that you're proposing. So you're going to have both a background and a problem statement that all of it has citations. You're supposed to identify the research gap, as in what is not known by anybody in the world. So research gaps could be that nothing is known. Research gaps could be that not enough is known. Research gap could be that there is research studies that conflict with each other. The whole idea of research gap is a little bit tricky, but we'll be talking about that next week. So you can be looking at that in the future. You're going to be looking in the literature for locating resources. You're going to look in journals, conference proceedings, and books in order to choose which ones you're going to include carefully. You not want to just choose the first one you find. You're going to write an edit literature review and write a summary section and an introductory section. The summary section always identifies the gaps. In writing literature review, you're going to read within your discipline. Sometimes outside is helpful. We're going to be talking in the future about how to get the resources through the library. You should have learned it in academic writing already, but I'll just review it in case you didn't learn. Sometimes gray literature is useful. That is stuff that is not in journals that can be useful, like government reports, statistics, patents, conference papers, etc. Even posters and infographics. You need to make good judgments whether those, but it cannot be only gray literature. So you cannot have an academic paper that is primarily gray literature. You're going to identify the purpose statement. So many students mix up purpose and significance. The significance is what you expect may happen if your research goes well. The purpose is within your study. What is the aim of the research group? The aim is different than the significance. So you can essentially usually reframe the research questions to state the purpose. So if you have one or two good research questions and you don't need more than one or two, sometimes you have three, you can usually take the last research question and just restate it in a sentence, which is the purpose. Really not that hard, but it takes practice. It is hard, actually, I shouldn't say that. And that is why you have your tutor. So I would suggest all three tutors are all very competent. Please make sure you get guidance from your tutors, whether in tutorial time or in their consultation periods. So the key is to formulate your question. Remember, academic research is about answering the research question. And you collect data, whether qualitative, quantitative, or both, in order to answer that research question. And you're going to figure out how to answer it. That's called the methods. How others answer it. It's not cheating to replicate somebody else's study. So you look at what other people have done to see, do you want to do that as well? You want to ask yourself, how does your proposal fit with others have done? How do you know when you have answered the question? That's called the methods. I'll say it again. Then you present your answer both orally and in writing. And so to develop a research question, you're going to have a clear purpose. You need to read the literature. It's not just a algorithmic process. You need to know the who, what, where, when of your purpose in order to figure this out. I remember last semester some students gave to me in consultation time and wanted to know it like, they wanted to know it like, this is the exact method. I'm like, there's no one method. This is a trial and error area. Guys, I would suggest right away you're going to start the concept note. So as a suggestion, you don't want to let the method drive the question. It's the literature review that drives the question. So we don't have time today to talk about collecting data, analyzing the data, reporting on the data. There are different types of research: basic, applied, action, and evaluation. We're most concerned maybe in this class about applied research, but all of these are also important. Basic research is really important. All big advances in technology have come because there's been excellent basic research, which has led to the applied research. Action research is when you do research to figure out problems on the ground. Evaluation is where you're doing research to evaluate something that's happening in practice. We're just going to skip all this for another day. So there are differences between qualitative and quantitative. Somebody in the lecture yesterday wanted to know if quantitative is better than qualitative, and I said that, so we'll come back to this, we're out of time. What I wanted to tell you is there are many common errors in scientific inquiry and lots of problems with research. We need to think about following ethics in conducting research. And I like this quote: the best teachers are those who show you where to look, but don't tell you what to see. So for next class, I would like you to review the abstracts and scan articles listed on the course outline. I want to show you in a second what I mean. Watch the videos and read the textbook. I'm going to show you what I mean in a second. Identify a topic for your concept paper. And I want to ask you right now, before I go back and show you what I mean for the other things, is I will tell you about it next week, But is anybody here who might be interested in a trio contest for February 15th? So TRIO stands for Technology, Research, Education, and Opinion. I'm thinking of having a talk that students give for a prize. Anybody here think they might be interested? Or this is not enough information to know if you'd be interested? Because I'm planning to give more information next week. Anybody here thinking that they might be interested in giving a talk? This is what Thomas. Natasha? Does that mean you're interested?
The information that you're going to provide next class.
Okay. All right. Right. So you still share my screen. So this is the on Moodle. There is a course outline, and let's see what's in the chat. So somebody said if there's a WhatsApp group. There is a WhatsApp group. As far as I know, all 3 of my tutorial classes have a WhatsApp group. I don't know if there's a WhatsApp group. The tutorial at 1 p.m. I don't know if there's one, so I didn't see anybody answer Ajani. Right, so just to show you that there's a plan for every single week. The recommended text I actually updated to 2014. And what I was telling you is before next class, I would like you to look at these 2 highlighted papers, as well as at least 1 more. You can look up more than that. So scan 3 or more papers of this, and I was very specific. The abstract and as much of the papers you like. So scan, read the abstract, and scan some or all of the papers. So you have some idea what the paper is about. And I would, so 2 out of these and 1 more. And then there's also the, this is also on the Moodle site. There's a week 1 tutorial sheet. We have videos and abstracts for scholarly papers. So I'd like you to watch these videos, and if you have time, you can watch more videos. All of this is just for you to understand more of research. So that's it. Any question? Let's see what's in the chat. All right. Okay. Any question by anybody?
Teach.
Yeah.
You can enroll me in the Moodle stuff.
In the Moodle?
Yeah,
No, I can't enroll. Let me just end the record. Where's the share?